I'm Paul Andrews, and this is the tale of how my marriage and family fell apart due to my wife's lack of personal hygiene. My ex-wife's name is Sarah Ridgway Andrews. We were set up on a blind date by mutual friends. She had just finished college and was working at First United National Bank in their associate management program, thanks to her business management degree. I had recently started at Allied Accounting and was new in town, so my coworker Steve arranged a double date. Steve and his girlfriend Brenda, who had been together for 6 months, thought Sarah and I would hit it off. Picture this, an accountant and a business intern on their first blind date. The excitement was palpable. We quickly found one common ground. Neither of us was looking for a physical encounter that night. I was more interested in her company than anything else, but she seemed wary of physical contact, hiding behind layers of clothing. Despite the awkward start, we had a stimulating conversation about our career aspirations, finding out we had similar backgrounds and ambitions. Both of us hailed from middle-income families in smaller towns, dreaming of success in our respective fields. I aimed to use my accounting skills to become an entrepreneur, while she sought stability and upward mobility in the corporate world, with occasional breaks for maternity leave. Despite her reserved demeanor, I couldn't help but imagine her blossoming into a more confident woman in the future. The evening ended with me escorting her to her apartment, where she gave me a brief, passionless hug before thanking me for the night. It beat spending Saturday evening alone with beer in my tiny apartment. Come Monday, Steve came by my office and congratulated me, saying Sarah couldn't stop talking about me to Brenda. Apparently, she wanted me to call her, just like back in junior high. Though I didn't think I'd left that much of an impression, I figured I should give her a call. After a few months of dating, I discovered the beauty hidden beneath Sarah's conservative attire. She had the figure of a Playboy playmate, with ample curves and a stunning physique. She explained how she'd concealed her looks in high school to avoid unwanted attention. But now, with me, she felt comfortable enough to reveal her true self. Despite the initial attraction, our marriage eventually crumbled due to her neglect of personal hygiene, leading to irreparable damage to our relationship and family. Through an amalgamation of fulfilling closeness and a strong personal bond rooted in admiration, trust, and mutual care, we discovered our love. Marriage and 2 children, Hannah and Miranda, were inevitable outcomes. Lovemaking remained satisfying before and after having kids. We purchased a starter home and the obligatory minivan. As Sarah ascended the career ladder, assuming greater responsibilities, I thrived at Allied Accounting, granted a leave of absence to pursue my CPA. Mr. Karstadt, Allied's owner, took me under his wing, imparting invaluable lessons surpassing any academic teachings. One evening, he invited me to lunch, revealing discussions about selling the firm to a larger accounting group. "Paul, you're my top employee, but you won't flourish under new ownership," he opined. "Consider starting your own practice before the buyout. They'll stifle your entrepreneurial spirit, leaving you discontent. Realize your entrepreneurial potential and plan for your future. I'll ensure you retain some clients to avoid financial strain." His proposal caught me off guard, leaving me grateful yet speechless. Over the weekend, Sarah and I deliberated incessantly. "Don't settle for being a mere employee," she urged. "Focus on climbing the corporate ladder and securing a stable future." But I feared becoming resentful of the monotonous accounting tasks. It was my chance to break free from routine and pursue my long-held aspirations. "This seems unwise," Sarah cautioned, citing our 2 small children and the associated risks. "I can't wait indefinitely to take a chance," I countered. Sarah reluctantly agreed but set financial boundaries, declaring she'd cover half of the household expenses but wouldn't fund any business ventures. "I'll give it my all," I assured her, though internally I wished to express gratitude for her support. Despite her initial reservations, Sarah remained steadfast, refusing to contribute to any loans for my new business endeavor. In case things go awry, she prefers to stay on the sidelines. After her unpleasant behavior, I had no desire to involve her bank, but I'm certain she'll come around once I start raking in substantial profits. Over the next year, finances became tight as Sarah consistently brought in income while my contributions fluctuated. By the end of the 2nd year, I out-earned Sarah slightly, but she preferred a steady monthly income, which I found dull. My business approach evolved as I focused more on advising potential deals rather than solely managing finances. It aligned with my aspirations, and I excelled at it. With my higher earnings, I began investing more into my startup. I capped my personal income at Sarah's level and channeled excess funds into investments. What I enjoyed was negotiating a reduced or waived consulting fee in exchange for a stake in promising ventures. I'd take 5% to 15% ownership for consulting services and lower monthly accounting fees. This arrangement benefited both parties, reducing startup costs for clients while granting them access to my expertise and insights. Being an investor made auditing the company impossible, but it suited me just fine. The company's value soared, outweighing the accounting fees lost. They could buy me out any time based on an agreed market value. Sarah wasn't pleased with this setup, especially my startup investments, so I stopped informing her. My accounting firm's revenue didn't meet expectations. Instead, I amassed net worth, though it wasn't reflected on my balance sheet since shares were valued at a low purchase price. With a competent staff, I could devote more time to my children. During tax season, I prioritized attending my children's performances and events, handling all parent-teacher conferences solo. It was a fulfilling period. The children thrived, and Sarah and I made significant strides. Sarah's expertise earned her the role of assistant vice president at the bank, reporting to multiple superiors. Following her promotion, she insisted on upgrading to a larger, more prestigious home to match her status at the bank. Despite my suggestion to wait, she went ahead and signed a contract at an exhibition the following Saturday. Feeling powerless, I couldn't object. Through my Chamber of Commerce connections, I befriended loan officers at her bank. They disclosed Sarah referring to me as the little accountant, a disrespect that seeped into our home through snide remarks about my profession. I was excluded from the bank's Christmas and summer parties, reinforcing the feeling of professional estrangement. It was time to address our relationship. On Saturday afternoon, I confronted her in the living room, requesting a few minutes to talk. She glanced at me disdainfully, deferring the conversation. "It can wait. I need to attend to some laundry," she retorted. Persisting, I insisted on discussing it later. "Can you spare 15 minutes this evening?" I asked. As she walked away, she reluctantly agreed, muttering, "Yes, I can do that." She then returned to her work. I held off discussing it until the day's end, aiming to highlight how she ignored me and disregarded my desires. My attempt to converse after the kids went to bed was halted by her exhaustion. Sunday morning was no better, as the kids readied for Sunday school and church. While the girls mingled with neighborhood kids outside, I spotted her grabbing her bag and heading toward the door. I halted her and asked, "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Irritated, she snapped, "Why have you been pestering me about this all weekend? You're acting like a little boy seeking his mother's attention. Can't you see I'm leaving to help my mom with her checkbook? I'll be back in an hour. Can you wait that long?" "It's been 24 hours since I requested 15 minutes of your time. I can wait another hour." 4 hours later, as she busied herself in the kitchen preparing dinner, I seized the moment to prevent her from talking. After dinner, I turned to her, expressing my concern about our growing emotional distance and the state of our marriage. Sarah's fork clattered onto her plate, prompting the girls to glance at me, their expressions curious. Our communication has changed, and I feel a lack of respect in our marriage. It's essential we address this before it becomes a bigger issue. Through clenched teeth, she responded, "This isn't the time or place for this conversation. Bringing it up in front of the girls surprises me." "You should feel ashamed, Sarah, for ignoring me. For the past 30 hours since I asked to talk, you've once again shut me out. Is there something I should know about?" Pushing her chair back, she took her plate to the kitchen and left the house. Well, that conversation was shorter than expected. My daughters were stunned by the confrontation. Miranda asked, "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" With tears in my eyes, I calmly reassured her, "No, honey, no one is getting divorced. Remember how you and your sister sometimes argue? Well, parents have disagreements too, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other or love you and Hannah any less. Mom didn't run away, she just went for a drive." This seemed to reassure them, but I remained unsettled. After tidying up the kitchen and doing some work in my office, I put the girls and myself to bed. I headed to the bedroom, thinking if she dislikes it, she can sleep on the sofa. It was nearly midnight when she joined me, undressed, and approached the bed. I lifted the blanket for her to join me. She nestled close and admitted, "I'm not saying I was wrong, but I'll strive to treat you with the respect I expect from my husband." I embraced her, murmuring, "That's wonderful. I aim to be the best husband for you." This temporarily eased the tension at home. A few years later, she was appointed Vice President of Regulatory Compliance, tasked with ensuring the bank adhered to FDIC, Federal Reserve, and Comptroller of the Currency regulations. Her philosophy aligned perfectly with her role. She believed no action should occur without specific approval from the governing body. This contradicted my belief that if there's no rule against it, it's legal. Clearly, this disagreement caused friction in our family. Fortunately, she remained unaware of my investments, which, though legal, wouldn't have met her approval as a fiscal official. Around this time, she began attending bachelorette parties on Tuesdays. The longer she stayed at these events, the later she returned home. Although our children were 16 and 14 years old and didn't require a nanny, they still needed parental supervision and involvement. I was consistently there for them. One Tuesday evening, I heard swearing from the master bathroom and went upstairs to investigate. She was standing at the sink, exclaiming, "Damn, damn, damn." "What's wrong?" I inquired. She growled as though I had left a mess in the sink. "My damn wedding ring fell into the sink. Do you think you can retrieve it, or should I call a plumber?" I wasn't fond of the insinuations about my abilities. Peering under the sink, I assured her, "If it's in the trap, I can get it out. It'll only take a minute." Again, in an accusatory tone, as if I were to blame for the mishap, she retorted, "Don't worry, I won't need it today anyway." Wow, I thought. You're going out and don't need your wedding ring? This raised concern, and I felt the urgency to gather more information. Sensing her hostile demeanor, I decided it was best to remain silent, but vigilant. Glancing at her briefly, I noticed she had retreated to the bedroom and was donning provocative lingerie I hadn't seen before. She attempted to evade me, judging by her choice of attire. "It's just a girls' night out, like any other Tuesday, don't you remember?" she snapped, appearing frustrated by my questions. I went to the garage to fetch pliers to retrieve the ring from the siphon. However, she slipped out of the house without saying a word. Since the drain was on her side of the double sink, I had to move some of her belongings before accessing the trap. To my surprise, I found an ordinary brown box of toilet paper. Even more surprising was its contents, an enema and douching kit. What in the world? She's been complaining about irritable bowel syndrome and diarrhea, but I always thought it was just her being difficult. Since when does she need to douche? As I sorted through the contents, I noticed the enema nozzle was wet. This is significant. It's likely true. The husband is often the last to know. But what do I really know at this point? Who knows? When developing a new business plan, I always made sure to uncover every detail about the company, both positive and negative. That's exactly what I'll do now. I'll begin my investigation immediately. But not quite yet, as I still needed to retrieve her ring from under the sink. Maybe she'll need it, maybe not. Time will tell. I marked the spot on the floor where the brown box was placed with a pencil, curious to see if it would be moved within the next week. I also took a photo of a few items to see if she arranged them back in the box the same way I found them. She returned home around midnight, undressed, closed the bathroom door, and started showering. I tried to feign sleep, but my heart was racing if she touched my chest. She got into bed with a thud that made it seem like I had just woken up. Then I heard her giggle softly. The next morning, I woke up early, mainly because I couldn't sleep. I made sure to close the bathroom door before taking a shower. Sure enough, when I checked, the brown box had been moved. The douche tip was still wet, and the box was an inch away from its original spot. Enema before going out for the night and douching before bed. Someone's having some serious fun. Using a Ziploc bag, I carefully extracted her odorous thong and sent it for biological substance testing. As an accountant, I knew well the property distribution dynamics in divorce cases. I had conducted numerous evaluations for both husbands and wives. In the event of divorce, Sarah would retain the house until the girls reach college age, and I would provide child support while having less time with them than I do now. If my investments were deemed insignificant, I might not pay child support to Sarah, as she deemed them worthless, a sentiment I shared. I refused to finance a home where she could entertain while our daughters were neglected. This situation should never have occurred. Armed with the necessary information, I began devising a strategic plan. Securing custody of my daughters was paramount. I could always earn money. I had proven this. Similarly, I had demonstrated my ability as a caring father. Now, my focus shifted to highlighting Sarah's inadequacies as a mother. Poison came to mind. Not chemical, but emotional. Sarah's perfectionist nature and demand for excellence often led to outbursts when things went awry. Minor issues ballooned into major ones for her. When she lost her temper, she turned hostile toward her employees, me, and the children. I intended to leverage this toxicity to alienate my daughters, ensuring they'd prefer to stay with me post-divorce. Thus, both the house and custody of the girls would remain with me. Silently, I approached her alarm clock and silenced it. She despises tardiness, especially after a late and undoubtedly hectic night like the one she had. The children came downstairs for breakfast, inquiring about their mom's whereabouts. I explained she arrived home late and might sleep in a bit longer, a concept they understood well, cherishing any opportunity for extra sleep. After observing her late-night phone conversations, I accessed her video playlist and played it on mute, hoping her phone battery would drain before she woke. She had a crucial staff meeting scheduled for Wednesday morning, she claimed. An hour later, I heard a shriek followed by my name. Apparently, I was to blame for her oversleeping after her late-night rendezvous. I seized the chance to escape her tirade by retreating to the garage. One of the tires on her Lexus had deflated enough to trigger the dashboard warning light, a nuisance she detests. Staring at a screen obstructed by alerts would surely drive her to madness during her commute. Hannah and Miranda also felt the brunt of her anger. Frantically rushing around the house, she attempted to dress, style her hair, and apply makeup simultaneously. Meanwhile, in the garage, I adjusted the door settings to prevent it from opening, subtly ensuring she wouldn't notice until she tried to leave and found the door unresponsive. She forcefully collided with the garage door, causing the two lower panels to buckle. The three of us approached the door, witnessing, but not hearing a woman in distress, pounding the steering wheel as she maneuvered the Lexus forward. I straightened the damaged panels and lifted the door, emitting a grating squeal. Sarah stormed out of the garage, narrowly avoiding a mailbox. This promises to be more amusing than anticipated. I wonder how she'll react when she tries to contact the office with her dead cell phone. The less I'm involved, the better. I embraced Hannah and Miranda, assuring them, "Mom's a bit stressed right now. She'll feel better when she gets home tonight. She still loves you, but not so much me." Afterward, all three of us shared a laugh. The alarm clock in our bedroom was now set at its highest volume. I allowed her to confirm the alarm was set. Unlike my wife, I arrived promptly to work this morning. My employees always appreciate it when I enter the office whistling. My good spirits persisted until 10 a.m. When my cell phone vibrated so loudly it nearly toppled off the table, I thought, well, I suppose it's my dear wife calling. "Good morning, dear," I managed to say before a barrage of profanity ensued. A shrill voice emanated from the phone. "You need to get your backside over here and fix my tire. I nearly died driving this hazardous car. If you had let me take the Mercedes I wanted, we wouldn't be dealing with this now." "Take it easy," I replied casually. "You have AAA insurance. Just give them a call and they'll handle it." "Freak you," was her retort. Since the morning unfolded smoothly, I informed my assistant that I had a few errands to run and would return after lunch. First on my agenda was visiting a security store to purchase small cameras for the house and a concealed voice recorder for her purse. It was crucial for me to gather intelligence on my adversaries and their activities. Upon returning home, I proceeded to install cameras in the living room and our bedroom. Although I made the garage panels functional, they bore the scars of the recent incident. They broadcasted some nonsense about a careless driver backing into us, much to the amusement of our neighbors. Upon resuming work, I meticulously reviewed all my personal banking and investment records. We shared only one joint credit card, which I promptly canceled. As for our joint bank account designated for household expenses, I left it open, but made a mental note to ensure that half of my income was deposited into it every payday. As usual, I arrived home before Sarah, preparing dinner as I heard the garage door groan open. Sarah's entrance was more forceful than the FBI's, startling both girls at the kitchen table, who screamed. Approaching me menacingly, Sarah muttered, "I've had the worst day ever. I'm going upstairs for a bath." The girls and I had a subdued dinner, speaking in hushed tones like clandestine children. Upon ascending the stairs, I offered Sarah dinner, only to have her hurl a bar of soap at me and snarl, "If I wanted dinner, I would have told you. Now leave me alone." It was the perfect opportunity to discreetly slip a recorder into her purse while making a small incision. I retired to the living room sofa, avoiding sharing a bed with her to evade the deafening blare of her alarm clock the next morning. The eruption of the latest rap hit from the alarm clock radio, punctuated by Sarah's expletives followed by the girls' screams, echoed throughout the house. It seemed unlikely that even the most vociferous U.S. Marine sergeant could rival the morning clamor in my household. While Sarah was preoccupied in the bathroom, I seized the chance to apply dark brown grease from my lawnmower onto the seat of her car in the garage. After she unknowingly sits on this lubricant during her commute to work, others might assume she had an embarrassing accident, this time literally, not figuratively. We received a similar dose of her anger and frustration as the previous night. To add credibility and ensure there was someone to blame, I also smeared the skirt she wore the day before. Her assistant Linda, married to one of my friends, phoned me to recount how Sarah discovered the stained skirt. She warned that Hurricane Sarah was brewing, and everyone should brace themselves. In the following days, I ceased tormenting her, but various mishaps continued to occur. For instance, one of her diamond earrings vanished from the table, and her dress from last Tuesday inexplicably had a red wine stain. The lining of her favorite shoes began to peel off thanks to my knowledge of where she kept her password book. Numerous sites she frequented denied her access whenever she drove her Lexus, turned a corner, or hit the brakes. A ball bearing would mysteriously roll around in her car door every day. Minor annoyances plagued her. It was like end of life by 1,000 cuts, and we were now at the 500th cut. Then came the ultimate test. On Tuesday after work, she returned home to change for a bachelorette party, not uttering a word to anyone in the house. She ensured the bathroom door was locked before undressing, repeating the same routine as the previous Tuesday, including the presence of the wet enema tip. The only difference was that I tracked her movements using her mobile phone's locator. According to the locator, her first stop that evening was Bonefish Grill. From there, she headed to the dance bar, O'Hara's. I wasn't concerned about her activities in the club. My focus was on who she left with. Observing her movements from the house, I followed her to O'Hara's. As I finished my coffee in the parking lot, I spotted Sarah exiting the bar holding hands with a man. They embraced and kissed passionately before parting ways. He drove off in his car, with Sarah following. I trailed them for a block before letting the locator do its job. The two ended up at Motel Number 6 near the highway. From afar, I watched as they entered a room with an exterior entrance. Anticipating they'd be there for a while, I noted down her boyfriend's car make, model, and license plate. In the dimly lit parking lot, I deflated the driver's side front tire enough to trigger a low-pressure alert on the dash. Spotting a nearby truck, I smeared grease on its windshield, knowing she'd turn on the wipers upon discovering the mess, rendering the windshield temporarily unusable. It'll be intriguing to hear what's recorded on the voice recorder in her purse tomorrow. The information I needed will now be within my reach, and I'm only halfway to my goal of exposing her. After 1 o'clock in the morning, she headed to the bedroom, undressed, and slammed the bathroom door, likely preparing to shower and douche. She didn't interact with her alarm clock or phone that night, aiming for these actions to seem arbitrary. A few hours later, while she was already snoring, I got out of bed, retrieved the recorder from her purse, loaded it into my laptop, charged it, and returned it to her purse. The next morning, when Sarah and the girls were out, I listened to the recording. Despite the noise at dinner and the club, the voice recorder effectively captured their activities. At Motel 6, I learned her boyfriend's name was Keith, and they shared mutual enjoyment. I also discovered that they frequented bashes every Tuesday night and indulged in stays at the Hyatt every other Thursday during business hours. Sarah took her turn booking a room there, and they chuckled at the obliviousness of the conservative bank president. They charged luxury escapades at the Hyatt to their corporate cards. Since the bank's headquarters neighbored the Hyatt, they often utilized its facilities to meet with bank personnel from other cities. So when do you plan to divorce your accountant husband? Right after my daughter Miranda heads off to college. I adore my girls, but I'd rather not spend my prime years chasing soccer balls with them. He's the world's best mom, and I'm grateful for that. I have more time to be with you here. I don't know why, but I just can't stand being around him anymore. I've tried everything to make him more successful, but he's content being an average guy with no aspirations. He's just squandering his life away. If you dislike him so much, why not divorce him now, get alimony, and spend more time with me? Chuckling, she replied, if I divorced him and received alimony, I'd still have to cover childcare, a maid, and a cook. Now my pushover does it all for free and adds money to our joint account. I don't have to cover as many household expenses. Plus, I can squirrel away a significant portion of my salary where he won't find it in the divorce. I use it for household expenses while building my secret stash. Talking about divorces, when do you plan to end things with your cold wife? That's set in stone, my dear. She insisted on a prenup before we got married. I agreed only after we included a 20-year validity period. 3 more years, and I'll get half of her multi-million-dollar stock portfolio. Chuckling, she remarked, you see, the timing is perfect. Your prenuptial agreement expires right around the time Miranda heads to college. Then we can both move on. After hearing this exchange, I couldn't believe there were such selfish and deceitful individuals on this planet. You know what? They're made for each other. They'll have a rough time together as they both try to deceive each other emotionally and financially. They expressed concern for their safety. To mitigate risk, they took turns reserving a room at the Hyatt Hotel every other week to avoid any pattern. Before departing, she ensured all tires were intact and the garage door was left open. Nonetheless, her contemptuous and disrespectful behavior remained evident to both myself and the girls. As anticipated, the test results confirmed the presence of biological substances on those undergarments. With ample evidence in hand, I instructed my lawyer, Jeff Green, to initiate divorce proceedings, seeking full custody of the girls due to my primary caretaking role. Given their mother's conduct, it seemed unlikely the girls would even desire to maintain contact with her. Jeff cautioned, "I'll include this, but it won't be easy. I proposed a division of the house until it sells, with each of us retaining our respective investments and retirement funds after both girls depart for college. By aligning my taxable income with hers, neither of us would owe child support, while she would be responsible for regular childcare expenses, including college tuition. We'd saved enough for tuition, housing, books, and meals, but not for extracurricular activities." Upon her transition to full-time vice president, she enrolled in the bank's deferred compensation program. I decided to leave this account untouched unless she sought my partnership investment, using her deferred compensation as leverage against her demands. In anticipation of the divorce, I began relocating important items from the house to storage and backed up my computer daily to an external hard drive, ensuring it was kept separate. While I intended to retain the house, I wasn't sure how Sarah would react upon receiving the summons. Following my lawyer's advice, I hired a private investigator to identify Keith and his place of employment, providing him with the license plate number to expedite the search. Annually, toward the end of the third quarter, the bank commences its budgeting process for the upcoming year. Employees fill out questionnaires, and each department reassesses its work and budget. To conclude, the senior management team hosts a formal dinner and dance program at the Hyatt Hotel, a black tie event attended by senior executives and their spouses, many of whom book rooms at the hotel. Sarah had mentioned this event to me years ago, but by the time she gained membership in this group, I was deemed unworthy. She frequently reminded me of this event, believing it might spur me to greater success, but I was indifferent. I had grown weary of these individuals. Nearly daily, I scoured her closets and drawers for further evidence of her infidelity. A week before the event, I discovered a new shoebox tucked away in the farthest corner of her closet, a pair of trendy Jimmy Choo evening shoes. With no receipt, I turned to Google and discovered they cost over $1,000. With the meeting just days away, I pondered how to respond. Initially, I considered swapping her elegant shoes with worn-out yard boots or a pair of Crocs. Instead, I opted to take the shoes to a shop, where I delicately adjusted the tall, slender heels by turning them slightly sideways in a bench vise. Afterward, the shoes were carefully rewrapped and returned to their original location. Discovering her brown box provided me with a lesson in handling delicate items. The day before the event, the investigator summoned me to his office with crucial information. Seated, he disclosed that her paramour was Keith Miller, a senior loan officer at Sarah's bank. This revelation had potentially severe repercussions for their careers. Although they didn't report to each other, Sarah's primary duty involved ensuring compliance within the credit department, alongside the bank's strict policy against inter-employee relationships. They were skating on thin ice. "Excellent intel," I acknowledged. "And could you arrange for some cameras to be installed at the senior management meeting at the Hyatt on Friday night?" Armed with a photo of Sarah, I requested footage of her movements and dancing. We both rejoiced as he received another check, and I obtained truly reliable information to cement our case. The footage from Friday night was uproarious, so much so that the detective chuckled throughout our viewing. Sarah staggered as if intoxicated, her weight pressing heavily on the slightly tilted heel, causing her to stumble into tables and chairs, even toppling 2 bottles of wine at one point. I intend to submit the footage to America's Funniest Home Videos once Sarah signs the release. Naturally, she and Keith adjourned to his room for a night of passion, all meticulously documented by a discreet video camera slipped under the hotel door. Isn't it remarkable how technology has advanced in recent years? Although Sarah returned home before noon on Saturday, we didn't see her until late Sunday morning. Typically, she would return home fatigued on Wednesday afternoons, likely due to her late Tuesday night classes. On this particular Wednesday, however, things took a different turn. I intended to adjust the hot water in her bath. She grumbled a greeting as she headed to the bathroom. I waited while she adjusted the tap to find the right mix of hot and cold water. Hearing the sink start running, I realized she was washing up, so I went to the utility room. Each faucet in our house has separate water lines regulated by a manifold on the wall. Swiftly, I shut off the hot water line in the bathroom and let the tub fill with cold water. As soon as the flow stopped, I turned the hot water valve back on. A pained sound escaped my beloved wife's lips as she eased into the cold water bath. Bubbles made it slippery, causing her to struggle for a grip. Rushing to her aid, I found her tearing the towel rack off the wall in an attempt to escape. I had to crawl back under the cold water, struggling to stifle laughter as I finally freed her, drenched and trembling. Frustrated by the absence of hot water, she slapped me. Both girls heard her distress and rushed in, witnessing their undressed mother's meltdown. Blaming them, she sent them away in tears despite their protests of innocence. It's even worse than I anticipated. I never expected her to lash out at them, especially not like that. I made a serious error in gauging where her anger would be directed. Then she turned her attention to me. "What the hell are you staring at, goat? Fix my bathtub. Can't you manage one simple task in this house?" Leading her to the bathtub, I restored the hot water. She was seething. I took her hand, let the hot water run over it, and remarked, "Plenty of hot water now?" After a few moments of silence, I excused myself and took the girls out for dinner elsewhere. Forget the meal I was preparing. The girls were in tears, so I pulled over a few blocks away to comfort them. I told them, "I'm truly sorry you had to endure that outburst. You don't deserve it. You're amazing kids, and I'm so proud of you. Please forgive your mother for her behavior, and forgive me for letting it happen. Forgive me." This seemed to soothe them and reminded me to be cautious in how I distanced us from Sarah. It was too enjoyable to torment her. By the time we returned home, it was bedtime. I left the kitchen as it was and settled on the sofa in the living room. In the dead of night, I sensed a presence, as if something ominous was approaching. And there she was. Sarah stood before me, and all I could manage was a feeble yes. She simply stood there. Finally, she spoke. "I shouldn't have yelled at the girls like that. It's not their fault. I must have turned the wrong knob. I've been overwhelmed and upset about so many things lately. Flat tires, garage doors, malfunctioning shoes. Every little annoyance feels like the end of the world. I need to get my life back on track." With that, she turned and ascended the stairs. I think that was all she needed to say. The next week, I received an unexpected gift. A business partner had a 2-bedroom apartment in Breckenridge, Colorado, and wondered if I'd like to rent it. It happened to be the week between Christmas and New Year's, and although the lease was for a year, the tenants had to back out. So my friend put down a deposit and offered it to me at half price. I said I'd get back to him. The girls were still down after their mother's outburst. Sarah apologized, but her harsh words lingered in their minds and hearts. I asked if they'd join me for a skiing trip in Breckenridge. They eagerly agreed, rushing over to hug and kiss me. That night, I booked round-trip plane tickets to Denver for the 4 of us. It was my final attempt to salvage our marriage by spending time together as a family. I paid extra for the option to cancel the tickets. When Sarah returned home, cleaned up, and dressed for dinner, I asked one of the girls to invite her to join us on the ski trip. They picked Hannah, knowing she couldn't keep quiet. "Mom, Dad rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Breckenridge for the week after Christmas. Can you find time to come with us? It'll be so much fun." Sarah smiled, but then grew thoughtful. What was she thinking? I wasn't sure. Then her eyebrows lifted and a smirk crossed her lips. "I'd love to, honey, but it's year-end, and it's crucial for the bank to balance everything by December 31st. I need to stay in the city. I'm really sorry." I was sorry, too. Sorry that Hannah felt let down. Sorry that Sarah declined with such a flimsy excuse. Compliance has nothing to do with a bank's year-end financials. Not at all. You don't need to be a financial expert to know that. The reason for her raised eyebrows and smirk? She saw it as a chance to spend 7 nights in our bedroom with that idiot Keith. The next week, my private investigator upgraded the cameras to Wi-Fi so I could monitor them in real time. While I was in Colorado, there was a scene unfolding at home that I was eager to witness. Not the adulterous rendezvous, but something else. On the day of our departure, I treated her enema tip with jalapeno pepper juice. If she wanted a spicy encounter, she was in for it. Before leaving for the airport, Sarah was a cordial mother, offering well wishes and hugs. I appreciated the brief affection and reciprocated with an "I love you, Sarah," to which she quickly replied, "I love you too." The plane and rental car rides were uneventful. Hannah and Miranda, excited by their first visit to the Rockies, rushed to the deck to savor the view and pine scent. Meanwhile, I set up my computer to access the Wi-Fi camera at home. As expected, Sarah arrived around 6 in the evening and headed straight for the bathroom. I wasn't interested in watching their bedroom antics. I focused on the landing, living room, and kitchen. Suddenly, Sarah stumbled downstairs, shrieking in agony. It appeared she had discovered the jalapeno-tainted enema, her face flushed red with pain. I couldn't help but imagine my investigators' amusement at this scene. Well, it seemed Keith wouldn't be visiting today. I wondered how long it would take her to recover. It would be a shame if their romantic plans were ruined for the entire week while we were away. Pity aside, the three of us enjoyed the Christmas-decorated downtown Breckenridge, indulging in pizza amid the snowy scenery. On our way back to the condo, the girls were drawn to music from a teen club. "Dad, can we check it out?" Hannah asked. Happy to oblige, especially considering all they'd been through, I escorted them inside. While they danced and laughed, I found a table to monitor them, allowing me to catch up on emails without feeling neglected. It didn't take them long to attract boys and engage in dancing, laughing, and chatting. Whenever they glanced back at me, I would give them a reassuring nod while lifting my Diet Coke. Many adults were present, keeping an eye on their kids. Across the dance floor, I noticed a particularly attractive woman doing the same. Our eyes met and we exchanged smiles. She had 2 boys who frequently approached her table for money, snacks, or drinks. My daughters seemed to prefer hanging out with them rather than playing elsewhere. As I finished typing the message, I glanced up and saw an attractive woman approaching me. Other men were also watching her. She wore ski pants so snugly fitted that her freckles were visible, and her sweater accentuated her figure, radiating warmth despite the freezing temperature. She stopped at my table. "You must be Hannah and Miranda's father. Why don't you come and join the rest of your family instead of staying here alone?" I tried to conceal my surprise, but responded warmly. "My girls have good judgment. I suppose that's why they're sitting at your table. I'm Donna, and Zach and Michael are my 2 boys, age 16 and 14, who aren't far from turning 21. I smiled. They're the same age as my girls. Coincidence? We both chuckled. "In the time I've spent observing your girls," Donna remarked, "and then interacting with them, they are incredibly sweet children. You should be proud." "Certainly, I am proud. I must say, your boys seem very well behaved too. Or is it just because you're keeping an eye on them?" Donna chuckled. "You're quite perceptive. It's reassuring to see a father who watches his children as attentively as I do. I work from home, so I'm the one who sees them off in the morning and welcomes them back in the afternoon. They receive a lot of attention because they're the most significant part of my life now." For Donna, the boys, and us, it was our first day in Breckenridge. It didn't take long for the 4 teenagers to plan their skiing activities. Tomorrow morning, Donna and I coordinated our schedules so we could take turns chaperoning them. We decided to send them off in the morning, have breakfast together, and then ski in the late morning and afternoon. Over the next week, Donna and I got to know each other better, and we both liked what we discovered. It felt good to confide in her about my issues with Sarah and my intention to divorce her. I didn't mention my pursuit of custody, making it easier for myself while ensuring the girls' well-being. Though not something to be proud of, it seemed the best option for them to be with me rather than that selfish woman. Donna had been a widow since her husband's tragic pass away in a drunk driving accident 2 years prior. We both struggled to forgive those who had altered our lives. Simply having someone understanding to talk to was immensely comforting for both of us. On our final evening, Donna and I shared a dinner without our teenagers. When the kids were out of sight, we spent the last 30 minutes of the night cuddled on the couch. By the week's end, we realized we needed more time together. Our 4 teenagers echoed the sentiment. It was clear it was time to end my marriage with Sarah. Upon our return home, Sarah appeared fatigued and drained. Perhaps joining the family in Colorado would have been beneficial for her. We had an enjoyable time. After witnessing my wife's behavior on our first night in Colorado, I felt no need to monitor the happenings in my house. It held no significance for me. I instructed Jeff to handle all the paperwork and submit it to the bank. The girls reacted to news of our divorce as anticipated. They observed the deterioration of my relationship with Sarah over the past 6 months. Contrasting my interactions with Donna to the bitterness between me and their mother, Hannah broached the main topic. What will become of Miranda and me now? Where will we go? I embraced them both and reassured, since the day you were born, you've been my entire world, and that won't change for the rest of my life. In the divorce proceedings, I requested full custody of both of you, and will remain in this house as a family. You'll attend the same school and keep your friendships intact. I'll continue to cook for you and provide support. You'll have the freedom to see your mother as often as you wish, I explained further. During the divorce proceedings, you'll have a say in who you choose to live with. The one who gains custody will also keep the house until both of you finish college. The decision will be yours to make. Just remember, no matter who you choose to live with, both your mom and I love you. Regardless, you'll stay in this house and attend your current school. Don't feel pressured to decide now. You have plenty of time before making that important choice. For now, take my car and go out to dinner so Mom and I can have a private conversation. If you'd rather not witness or hear our discussion today, that's fine. After concluding my conversation with the girls, I checked my phone to see the numerous missed calls and texts. As we talked, I had a hunch about the caller's identity. Instead of ignoring the call, I opted to dial Sarah. The first words out of her mouth weren't a greeting, but a barrage of curses that seemed to melt the plastic of my phone. I let her vent, rant, threaten, and scream until she ran out of breath. It was futile to interject, so I allowed her to vent. Eventually, she paused to catch her breath. Why? Why would you do this to me? Don't you love me anymore, especially after everything I've done for you and the girls? Why won't you come home so we can talk this out? With a click, the call ended abruptly. She must have been on her way over before I could fully process the situation. Bursting through the door, she approached me with an angry growl, demanding, "Why?" I responded calmly, "You've been seeing Keith Miller behind my back every Tuesday night for who knows how long. Did you really expect a different outcome? I offered you a chance to start fresh by moving to Colorado. But you've chosen Keith over your family, and now you must face the consequences. Sarah, you need to gather your belongings and move out. Find temporary accommodation in a hotel while we figure things out. I won't resort to burning your belongings in the yard today, but you're free to see the girls whenever you wish. Once you're settled, consult with a lawyer to understand the terms of the divorce I'm offering. It seems fair to me, but ultimately you need to decide what you want to do. In the meantime, please refrain from contacting me except for coordinating visits with the girls or retrieving your belongings. From now on, our discussions will solely revolve around the divorce." Retreating to my office, I shut the door and listened to the sound of suitcases being dragged across various surfaces. What I didn't hear was crying, which was disheartening. I knew I never wanted to reconcile with her, and it seemed the feeling was mutual. Changing the locks, resetting codes, and passwords came next on my agenda. Sarah was furious throughout the divorce proceedings. It wasn't out of lingering love or a desire to salvage the family. It felt more like she wanted to portray herself as the one who had the upper hand, not the other way around. She wanted everyone to believe that she had kicked out the inadequate accountant, not the other way around. She felt professionally embarrassed by the divorce filing. Neither of us had any interest in marriage counseling. Our relationship was beyond repair. The warmth and affection we once shared had long since evaporated. I considered myself fortunate to be able to proceed with the divorce, unlike many other men. Hannah and Miranda opted to live with me, seeing their mother only sporadically. They grew uncomfortable with her probing questions about me and whether I missed her. My interactions with her were minimal, and I often made myself scarce during her visits with the girls. Sarah harbored such disdain for me and my small accounting firm that she wanted no part of it. She sought to retain her 401k account and deferred compensation funds, believing I was unaware of them. She bore the expenses of childcare, and her health insurance from the bank was superior to mine. I chose not to disclose my knowledge of her affairs at the Hyatt. It was a card I intended to play later. She took with her the furniture she deemed stylish, leaving us three with what remained. Strangely, she left behind all the family photos as though they were shrines dedicated to her. I'm certain she had undisclosed funds stashed away, but it didn't concern me. My focus was on my children and my business, with everything related to her taking a back seat. An anonymous sender circulated videos of Keith engaging in carnal activities with Sarah, his wife, resulting in a surge in legal expenses across the city. Traders convened in an upscale apartment in a trendy neighborhood, leaving me curious about their dynamics beyond their carnal escapades. Following the divorce, I invited Donna and her sons over for the weekend. While we refrained from closeness to set a good example for our children, We still shared affection through kissing and embraces. Donna served as the perfect remedy to help me move past the bitter end of my marriage. We both understood the trajectory of our relationship, and she already had accommodations sorted. With two 16-year-olds under our roof, we remained vigilant, ensuring they received the attention they needed. Donna, a registered nurse who worked remotely for a health insurance company handling medical claims, found a fitting office space in my home. A year later, I tipped off a friend working for a CPA firm, auditing a bank about two senior employees misusing bank credit cards for personal activities during work hours. The subsequent audit prompted their dismissal, and the bank pursued legal action against Sarah and Keith, impacting their employment prospects in the banking sector nationwide. Facing financial woes, Keith's situation worsened as he anticipated significant financial obligations toward his wife and children upon re-entering the workforce. Sarah, now employed as a paralegal at a divorce law office, draws from her personal experiences to assist clients grappling with similar issues. Despite counseling others on divorce matters, she privately reflects on the downfall of her own marriage, grappling with feelings of regret and unrealized aspirations. Interestingly, she no longer seems fixated on pursuing relationships with successful businessmen and doctors, unlike her previous aspirations. As the year drew to a close, my seemingly worthless investments accrued to over $2 million, promising a prosperous year ahead, especially with my upcoming wedding to Donna scheduled for mid-June.